Hi there, hi, it's Daniel Thornton, and it's great to be with you for topic 12 in this Min 101 Introduction to Pastoral Ministry. And we are talking today about ministering with and through the creative arts. And this has been my world. I'll give you a little bit of background to that in a moment. But just to start off, let's make sure that we're on the same page in terms of what we're talking about. The creative arts include music, dance, drama, visual arts, and media arts in more recently. So that's the specific kind of pathway that we're walking down today to explore how that relates to ministry, how that relates to what we do as Christians, as the body of Christ, in services, maybe also outside in the various contexts. Well, as I said, this is my world for the last 20, 30 years. The last 9 years I've been with the college and headed up the creation of a creative arts department, of an arts department, because the college didn't have that area to focus on previously. But of course, it's always been a big part of the church, and so our president asked whether I could bring that into the college, and we established some music courses, we established media courses, and over those 9 years, that just continues to develop and grow, which is really exciting. So that's been my world at the college, but the 20 years before that was as a worship pastor or creative pastor in a lot of different contexts. Some really large churches, multi-campus, mega churches. I was the worship pastor for Influences Church, or back then it was Paradise Church. And I've also been in pioneer works, so where I was it for the whole creative department. It was me. Worship department, me. Musicians, me. Drama, me. So I've been in other contexts that are in between all that. So hopefully I can bring something to whatever your context is that is meaningful, that is helpful in this space. Well, where should we start? I reckon that the starting point when we're talking about the creative arts is not a specific art, music, dance, drama, whatever. It's actually to rewind right to the beginning, Genesis 1:1, where God first identifies himself not as Father, not as Savior, not as all of the other things that ultimately we get to understand that God is, but the very first way he defines himself is as the Creator. In the beginning, Genesis 1:1, God created the heavens and the earth. And that's, I think, a really important starting place, because when we look at the way in which God created, we get an understanding of what creativity is, how it's expressed, what that means for us as human beings. And I think one of the significant aspects of God being a creator is that he's aesthetic. He's not just functional. He's not just creating something so that it does its job. In Genesis 2 verse 9, it tells us that God made the trees that were pleasant to the sight and good for food. Pleasant in that order. Pleasant to the sight and good for food. Now, God didn't need to make trees so that they were nice to look at. He just needed to make them so that human beings wouldn't die, so they had something to eat. But he doesn't approach it that way. He's not just a pragmatic creator, not just a functional creator. He's an aesthetic creator. He's interested in beauty. He's interested in how people are going to experience the creation that he's brought into being. And so he makes trees that are pleasant to the sight, that are beautiful to look at. And of course, all around the world, we get, whenever I've gone overseas, whenever I've looked at various places, whether it be oceans or mountains or different landscapes, I am constantly amazed at the aesthetic nature of God's creation. He constantly gives us a wow, that there's something else to look at, there's something different. Even when God made a tree, he didn't just go, yeah, that's a pretty good looking tree, let's make all the trees like that. No, he puts right within the DNA of that creativity even more creativity. The next tree would be slightly different. The next tree after that would be different again. Just as with human beings. I mean, did he not create the perfect man and the perfect woman, Adam and Eve? And yet he doesn't just go, yep, that's exactly how humans should be, and the next little boy that's born looks just like Adam, and the next one looks just like Adam. No, he puts all of this dynamic creativity within his creation to continue to express different aspects of God's beauty and the array of what God calls good. And he doesn't just stop there in creation. When God instructs the building of the temple for the Israelites, it's not just 4 walls and, a roof so they don't get wet. No, it's all of this intricate artwork and carvings and drapes with different colours. There's so much detail there that is beyond the necessary. It's not going to affect the function of the building if it has pomegranates stuck on the bottom of the temple curtains, But God puts this detail in there, and then in fact, we read in Exodus 31 that he actually then gifts people with this ability, this artisan capacity to bring the reality to those visions, to those instructions. Bezalel, who was the chief one among them. So human beings are made in the image of God, and that very first image is the image of a creator. And therefore, we are going to be creators. That's the bottom line. Whether you feel creative or don't feel creative, whether it's in the creative arts or some other creative area, you are creative. And that's where we're going to leave our first video, and I'll catch up with you in the next one. Great to be with you again for topic 12 and our second video. We were talking about the fact that as human beings, we are creative because we reflect the Creator. And of course, some of that creativity is expressed through the creative arts. And I think it's really unfortunate that we sometimes push creativity into the world of the arts, or maybe into the world of inventions. But there are a whole lot of people who don't feel or call themselves particularly creative. They might just love their accounting or love their filing or their systems, and they might not express that they are particularly creative in some of those areas. But I just want to step back from talking about the creative arts so that we don't just push creativity into this one space. Creativity is everywhere, and every human being is creative. I think it's really unfortunate that our schooling systems tend to kind of drive that out of kids. The children are magnificently creative, and school teaches them that there's one way to answer the question 2 + 2 equals. If you don't write 4 in there, it's wrong. The answer is wrong. It's not, wow, that was an interesting way of thinking about it. And that is the schooling system. It definitely gets us, just kind of squashes a lot of creativity. But that's another topic. The thing is, creativity can be expressed in so many ways, but the way that we're talking about it today is through the arts: music, dance, drama, media, visual arts. And so the very first way that the body of Christ expresses that is not with any kind of agenda or any objective. It's simply as a reflection of who God is. Right? So we're going to use the creative arts, we're going to use music, we're going to use visual arts, first and foremost, just because we're human beings, right? But secondly, the arts have this capacity to them to provide us with experiences, to provide us with connections that go beyond words. I mean, look, I love words. Words are important. I'm talking to you with words. Communication is great. Even God created with words. Let there be light, and there was. But words have limitations. Right? Yeah, I mean, have you ever listened to an amazing piece of music and you don't have the words? It did something to you, it connected to you in some kind of powerful way, but to try and put that into words just seems to diminish it. And I think this is part of the power of the arts that God has given us, that the arts can take us beyond words. So visual art, think about the power of someone creating a vision of something that's not seen. We don't get to see God until he returns, or, we might have visions, but ultimately we live this life by faith. Yet God gives us art. He gives us this ability to see something that can't be seen with our natural eyes and bring that to life on a canvas, in a sculpture, on a screen. That's so powerful, because it's really, every visual art is a statement of faith. It's what wasn't seen, the not yet seen, becomes the reality through the creative expression. Again, I think you can't just reduce that to words. You can describe something that's happening in a picture, but how that connects with you, how that brings revelation to you, how that makes you feel, the experience of engaging with creative arts is something that goes well beyond words. And so not only are creative arts a reflection of just being human, but they're also a way that we can express something of being human and of connecting with God that goes beyond words. I think finally, the way that a more pragmatic approach to creative arts, which is probably the one that we most talk about, is the way of using arts for cultural relevance, of wanting to create music or visual elements or using dance or drama to communicate the gospel to the wider world. And of course, that's completely valid. Jesus told his own stories there to the masses and used that dramatic flair, that creative storytelling to bring truths to life. So there's no doubt that creative arts are powerful in the communication of the gospel and communication of truth. I guess the challenge that we face in perhaps employing those is that we live in a culture where the creative arts are entertainment. By and large, it's about, do I enjoy this? And so when we bring them into church, how do we reframe them? How do we rethink about creative arts in a way that's not just, are we making people enjoy, but are we communicating truth? Is this something that's beyond just flicking on the TV and watching something that's excellently produced and has all of the other creative arts elements in it? So I think we're going to leave that thought there, and we'll come back and now sort of put this on the ground in terms of how the creative arts are expressed and the kind of relationships and the hierarchies and structures that are involved in making all of that happen. Hi there again. Here we are for our third video in topic 12, looking at creative arts and how we minister with and through creative arts. So I want to move now on to some of the applications, some of the real life relationships that happen in the putting creative arts into our churches, through our churches, the leadership, all of that. I wonder if for a moment, you might even pause the video at this point, but I wonder if for a moment you would just think about your ideal creative leader, your ideal worship pastor. What would they be like? What kind of attributes would they have? What kind of character would they have? Spiritual attributes. What kind of skills would they have? Would you expect them to be a good singer or musician? Would you expect them to have a certain experience in that field outside the church or inside of churches? What would they ideally have in their background before they were coming to take on that role for you? What kind of knowledge would they have? Would they have done formal training? Would they have done just informal training? Would it be just the knowledge they've gained through their experiences? I think that a lot of senior pastors, as I've done my journey through a few churches and certainly spoken to many senior pastors, I think very often for the creative arts, which is primarily in the church, it's music, but then absolutely, visual arts are very important. The way things, the aesthetic, the way the stage looks, lighting, all of that. Video elements are becoming so much more important in churches these days. So there's the whole media arts element. But often it starts with music. Music, even in small churches, even if they don't have all the lights and have all the video projectors, they'll have someone on the guitar, someone on the piano, to bring together the body in musical worship. And I just make that qualification that I think we often call it worship, which is fine, but we have to remember that that worship is so much more than just that 15, 20, 30 minutes, however long it is, of gathered time of singing on a Sunday. But I'm sure you already know that. So I think when senior pastors look for someone to step up and take on this role and breathe life into it and bring to reality their vision for the church, for the creative arts in church, I think they often look at gift. So they often look for someone who's a great worship leader, a great musician. Some kind of gift is often the first thing that it kind of becomes prominent for people. It's the thing that you see, right? And then I think also they look for some kind of ministry calling that, that person really wants to exercise that gift within the church, within the body. They want to bring creative arts into the service of the vision, of evangelism, of growing the church, building the church. In actuality, the work of a creative pastor or a worship pastor is three things: pastoral and creative component. The admin and pastoral components are actually the larger components. It just takes a lot of time and effort to organise the right music or scripts or ordering equipment or fixing equipment or rehearsals or the events that we do, whether it be for Christmas or Easter or Mother's Day or Father's Day. There's always something. You move in church, the church calendar. You move from one thing and you're on to the next. If not actually already thinking about that beforehand. I mean, often larger churches are thinking about some of their big events, Christmas or Easter, a year in advance. I know when I was the worship pastor at Paradise, we did a major Christmas carols event outside in the park, big community Christmas carols event. And to book some of the big name artists, I mean, you had to have at least a year, if not sometimes longer. So the admin work involved in creative arts is huge. And I often think that when senior leaders are employing people in these roles, they often pick people who are gifted in actually the specific creative arts, but not necessarily gifted in admin. But suddenly they find themselves with all this admin work. And that can be a real killer to creative people when they felt like they were signing up for one thing and they suddenly find that they're really just swimming in a sea of data sheets and Excel spreadsheets and lists and picking up pieces. Pastoral work as well. I mean, if someone might be a really powerful worship leader, that doesn't necessarily mean they know how to disciple someone, that they know how to walk with people through the journeys of life. And the reality is, in any team, you're going to have people who are at great heights and at great lows in their life. And the pastoral component, it can be really significant. I don't want to say especially in the creative arts. Sometimes people talk about creative people as though they're temperamental. They're the difficult bunch. You go, they can be a bit of a handful. I don't like that caricature of creativity. I think creativity can have a representation of sensitivity, which is beautiful. And we shouldn't allow that to become temperamental a temperamentality, whatever that word would be, because people are first of all Christians, then they're creatives, right? First of all, we're children of God, so the fruit of the Spirit abounds in our lives. That's who we are first, and then God gives us these other gifts. So that pastoral component, if you don't have someone who's leading who understands that whole world, then I think you're setting them up for failure. And finally, there's this creative component where they do actually get to operate in their gift, whether that's a musical gift or a visual arts gift or whatever. And of course, often that's just during a service. It's on a Sunday morning or it's a Saturday night or whenever the services are. And that's really important. But I've seen some people who've been put in charge of creative teams who are actually never on the platform, but have those wonderful administrative or pastoral gifts, and they facilitate the creative people being able to function in their gifts. So I think it's really important that we think, however this thing is being led, that we're picking the right people and we're picking the right gifts, and not just seeing someone who has a gift on their life and putting them in charge, which really does just set them up for failure. All right, we've got one more video to come, and I'm going to talk about some more of this practical outworking of creative arts in the church. God bless. Here we are for our final video in this topic. It's been wonderful to spend this time with you. I know that I'm not your regular lecturer. I get to just step in for this topic, which is great. It's a great privilege to do that. Most of my world is in lecturing many of the other worship and music subjects that we have here at AC. And certainly if you're at the beginning of your course, consider some of those. They're all available on the website. You can look them all up, the WOR or MUS subjects, and there's a whole array of them. Some of them certainly would require you to have some creative expertise, some musical expertise. If you're doing music ensembles, you need to play something or sing something. But others, like lyrics and theology, we explore songwriting and the power of lyrics and how they interact with theological ideas and concerns. And you don't have to have any musical background to be able to explore that subject. So I encourage you to look into those if they're of interest to you. Because I lecture across so many other subjects, I'm really just skimming the surface here on some things that I think will be perhaps most useful to where you are. And one of the questions that many people have asked me is, what do creative people wish their senior pastor knew? What do they wish they could say to their senior pastor or their pastor? And what do pastors wish they could say to their creative people? The things that perhaps that go unsaid, that people don't feel like they can share. So I'm going to say perhaps what's in some people's heads that actually needs to be brought out. And if we can better understand both sides of that, both the creative arts expressions within the church and the leadership that serves under, and the relationship between those, then I think we'll be on our way to constantly improving that, doing that better, and being a greater blessing to the body. So what every creative wishes they could say to their pastor. I think the first thing is they'd say to their pastor, you don't need to know everything about the creative arts. Right? We're not asking senior pastors to be the ultimate arbiter of everything that's aesthetic. The bottom line is every senior leader is going to have their own subjective views. They're going to like this sort of music and they're not going to like this sort of music. They're going to like this sort of art and they're not going to like this sort of art. Now, some of that input is really important because obviously we want to provide something that everyone's on the same page with. But at the same time, we don't expect that our senior leaders are going to have the expertise that we have in the specific area of creativity. And so they don't need to be able to say, I want more green in that, and I want down to the nitty gritty. I want the drums up no. Actually, I think we would want to say to senior pastors, look, give us the big picture. Let us understand what you're trying to accomplish, and let us deal with the stuff that we actually know about, right? I think creative people would say to their leaders, their senior pastors, communicate with us. I have many times stood on a platform and led worship and looked down at my senior pastor, and there is a look on their face, but you don't know what they're thinking. Are they angry? Are they... they're unreadable, and if you don't get the communication from them, like, yeah, look, that was what I was after, or I was really hoping that you would do that. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. I think related to that is the moving of the goalposts. I think most creative people, we want some goalposts so that we can kick a goal. And if senior leaders will set that up for us and go, look, here's how you kick a goal. Here's what a win looks like. Then we can do what we do to bring that to pass. I think when they go, this is what I want, and then you do that, and suddenly they're saying, this is what I want, that's really frustrating for creative people. I thought you wanted new people on the team. No, I want the experienced people on the team because the new people are too, they don't have the expertise yet. And then, no, we want more people involved. Well, more people involved means new people on the team. These kinds of discussions of moving goalposts can be so frustrating, I think, on both sides. But I think every creative would want to say to their pastor, please just set us clear, non-moving goalposts so we can give you what you want. I think another thing they'd want to say is, value me for me and not just for my gift. Look, every gifted person is often praised for what they do. Oh, you've got such a beautiful voice. Oh, you're such an amazing musician. Oh, that was such a spectacular background, or that was great acting. And all of that affirmation, it's great. But ultimately, it's a valuing of just one part of who we are. It's the gift. But the us is actually far more than a gift. And I think that most creative people would really want their pastors to value them not just for their gift, like whether they're on the roster or not. Do you value me? Do you value me as a human being, as a Christian, as a brother or sister in Christ? And of course, that needs to be explicit. That needs to be communicated, because I think by default, all we end up hearing is, "Wasn't that a great song?" or "Wasn't the praise of the output?" I think most creative people would say to their pastors, please be the lead worshipper. You might be standing at the front there, you might think that no one's looking at you, they're all looking up at the stage. No, they're not. They're looking at the stage and they're also looking at you. And if you don't engage, you're asking us to accomplish something with the congregation that's really impossible. You're the lead worshipper. If you're the senior pastor, or if you're a lead pastor in the church, even if you're on the front row and looking in the same direction as everyone else, you are still leading. And it's so helpful when you get senior pastors who engage in the worship, because it communicates to everyone else that's the heart of the church, and that's what we're trying to do as a body. And it's so powerful. I think the other aspect is that creative people wish they could say to their pastor is, encourage the team. Often we hear when something goes wrong, right? There's nothing said to the sound guy until suddenly there's terrible, feedback or something, and then, can you please feedback? Can you please fix that? What's the problem? Often creative arts are kind of transparent until there's an issue. And I think it's really important that pastors and leaders make sure that they value the team when things are going on without any drama, and not just sort of pick up when the drama happens and make those issues. So encourage the team. Well, let's turn it back the other way around. What does every pastor wish they could say to their creative team? What does every senior leader wish they could say to their creative people? Well, I think one of the things is that they would say the platform really tests everyone's humility. Look, when you're on the platform, you are elevated. Even if nothing else is said, the fact that you stand on that platform, or the fact that you're given prominence on that platform, really is going to be a test of our humility. And we've got to make sure that we don't decide in that process that we deserve the platform, or that we, have a right to the platform, or that somehow we know the church better than the senior pastor. Or we've got to be really humble when whatever our involvement, and maybe your involvement in creative arts is not on the platform, maybe it's behind the sound desk, or in preparation, in a room editing videos. All of those things are important, but I think especially those on the platform are tested by this issue of pride and humility. And I think pastors would say, just watch out for it. I think pastors would wish that they would tell their creative team knew that they are trying to please a lot of people. Look, most churches have old people, they have young people, they have people from different walks of life, different cultures, and the senior leaders, the senior pastor, is trying to include everyone. Well, hey, that's actually quite difficult through the arts. Often the arts are quite directed towards a specific group. There's particular musical sounds that are for young people, or there are particular visual elements that, might be for an action movie designed for a certain group of people than a romance movie. This whole ability to gather everyone, I think, is a great challenge for creative teams. We're always going to be choosing some kind of creative expression, musically, visually, dance, drama, whatever it might be. And it is going to more directly connect with some than others. Maybe one generation than another generation. But if we had the heart that we want to gather the whole body, I think as long as pastors would want their creative people to at least have a heart that wants to gather, rather than just wants to do their thing, do their, I think this is the creative expression that suits me, or, I think every pastor wishes that they could say to their creative team, look, I want problem solvers, not just critics. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has an opinion on sound. The drums are too loud. The drums are too soft. The guitars are too loud. The vocals, whatever. Everyone's got an opinion. But the pastors do not need another opinion. What they need is someone to get in there and help move things forward, help problem solve. So if you're really good at identifying where the issues are, great, but come up with solutions. Be a part of the solving community, and not just a part of the critics sitting up the back. I think every pastor wants creative people to understand their heart. And look, sometimes pastors are not going to communicate as well as they would wish. But if we have goodwill towards them, we believe the best when they say something and maybe they don't quite say it the right way, that we project the goodwill, that their heart is for us, that their heart is for the church, and rather than reading some kind of other intent into them, or they don't like me, or they're just trying to bring that other person in, or they're just trying to change something. I think every pastor wishes that the creative team would understand their heart. And finally, I think pastors want things to be relatively simple, and perhaps as creative people we can get complex, we can dream in spaces that aren't a reality yet. Things can get complicated pretty quickly. How many bits of equipment do we need? How many mics do we need? How many singers do we need? What harmonies do we need? We get into all the detail, get into all of the elements that creative arts can explore, and perhaps miss the simplicity of wanting to serve the body of Christ so that it grows, so that we can reach the world for Jesus. So I think if we can keep the main thing as creative people, then we're going to be doing really well. Hey, look, it's been great to be with you for these videos, and I really welcome any conversations that you want to pursue after all of this, and certainly welcome you in any of the ongoing subjects in the worship or music sphere across the college. God bless you.